Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Tonight's video features nearly abducted stories sent in from viewers just like yourselves. Sit back, relax, and stay sinful. Story number 1. I went out a few nights ago to get some water, because who wants to be drinking tap water? My husband was home, and because I'm kind of heavily pregnant, he insisted that he go instead. I wish he would have. It was about 1 a.m., dark for miles in the middle of nowhere. As I get out of my car, I open the back seat to get the gallon jugs and close the door. As soon as I do, a dark blue truck turned van pulls up perpendicular behind me, presumably so I couldn't get out if I decided to get back in my car. Alarm bells start going off, and the bells start screaming at me when the slide doors open and two quite large men step out. It's about a 20-foot distance between them and me, so I do the first thing I think of, pull out my phone. I answered a phone call from my husband and answered with, "Hey honey, yeah, I'm almost home." As soon as they see me answer, one of the guys says, "Shit," and they both get back in the car, peel out of the lot, tires squealing and all. I throw my unfilled water jugs back into the car and lock all the doors 1,000,000 times or more. I broke down and called the police and my husband. My husband told me to write down the make and model of the car, and we go to the police station in the morning. About 2 days later, there was breaking news of a pregnant woman that went missing. She was abducted as her father had sworn up and down she wouldn't just up and leave. I know it was the men in the blue van. I've told the police all I know. I don't know if they targeted me because I was a woman all alone in the middle of nowhere, but deep down I know they targeted me because I was pregnant. I don't want to think about what would have happened to me or my child. So men in the blue car, fuck you. Let's never meet again. Story number 2. To contextualize, I'm from France and this story takes place when I was about 8 years old. I was at my grandparents' house this week because my school was right next to it. They lived in a building on the very top floor, whose only way to open the main door was to know the code number, to have a badge, or to call a resident who can open from the inside. This happened when I was at their home. I was in a bedroom upstairs and my grandmother was sleeping downstairs. It was 3 or 4 in the morning when everything started. My grandfather worked at night, and at that time, they only had one key for the door, so my grandmother left the door open. One night I hear my grandmother screaming in fear, and suddenly, nothing. A few minutes or an hour later, I'm not quite sure, she calls me to go downstairs. She told me, "I'm sure someone watched me sleep," and that she thinks she fainted instantly. I thought maybe it was her dream, maybe she'd fallen asleep fast, but still we waited for the return of my grandfather. When my grandfather got home, she told him that there was someone sitting right next to her, very close on the floor, with barely the upper body and the head visible from the bed, who was watching her sleep, and that he was wearing a hooded K-way. My grandfather replied, wait. He just said goodbye to me in the stairwell. He went back there without ever finding the man. Our neighbor said she was called to the intercom, and a man said to her, "I'm blank's colleague, can you open the door?" The man lied about knowing my grandfather to gain entry to our place. My grandfather had never seen the man before, and his first name is not written anywhere in the building. Only the last name. And how did that man know my grandfather was working that night too? We will never know. Story number 3. I was too young to even remember this happening to me, so my dad told me this story. I'll be telling this story from my dad's perspective, since I don't remember a thing. My dad was with me and my sister at my sister's softball game, and he was running the concession stand as a volunteer. I was there with him, and I guess I had left the stand and went to walk around, because my dad told me I was no longer by his side. I must have seen a man with his dog and went up to start petting the dog, since I'm a very big dog lover. Apparently the man had managed to convince me to follow him, because my dad told me that he no longer saw me in the area of the field. He looked around, and when he saw me, I was 4 blocks down the road following this stranger and his dog. My dad fled the stand, running down the sidewalk onto the street, adrenaline pumping in his veins. He managed to catch up to us before we got too much further. The man wasn't holding me, so it wasn't like he was dragging me along, but my dad was still sprinting. He explained that he scooped me off the ground and held me tightly to his chest. The man looked back and said, "I thought you said you told your father you were coming with me." My dad started swearing at the man, screaming in anger, carried me back to the field while the man just casually walked off with his dog. Story number 4. This happened a few months ago, and it still weirds me out to the day. I was walking down to my school because my mom and her boyfriend had something to do that day, and I wanted to get some work done. It was about an hour or so of a walk, but I don't particularly mind that length of a walk, since I do it often enough. It was a hot day, so I decided to make a pit stop so I can get a Polar Pop drink. On my way out of the parking lot, there was a man filling his tires who called out to me. I figured that maybe he just needed more change for the air, so I got a little closer, enough to hear what he wanted, but far enough away that I could bolt quickly if I needed to. The first thing he asked is for my name. I was creeped out but gave him a fake one to seem polite. He started talking a little bit about himself. I can't remember if he even gave me a name, which is another red flag. He asked me questions about me. I lied with all of my answers, or kept them extremely vague, because I'm not about to tell a total stranger real information about me. He asked me where I was going. I just said school. There are quite a few schools in the area, so there's no way to identify which school I was going to. The man offered to give me a ride. I politely declined and started to leave, yet he was so insistent. He asked me where my school was. I gave him another vague answer, straight out lie directing the opposite direction of where I was going. I couldn't afford to have him track me, and yet again I tried to leave. And then he called out the exact school that I went to. I kept a straight face while internally panicking, pretending not to know what that school was. I was extremely freaked out. I didn't have anything on me to indicate where I could go to school. I set a different crossroads, far enough away so if he decided to track me, he wouldn't find me. There are a lot of different schools in my area. He didn't know my age. I could be anywhere in between high school to college. So how the hell was he able to state what school I went to? I made an excuse to bolt, made sure he wasn't following me, and ducked into the nearby puppy place. I calmed myself down and called my mom. To see what she was doing and asked her to come get me, to take me to school. She said it would be a while and just to hang tight. I played with the puppies trying to relax, and then, I shit you not, he walked into the puppy place. I instantly turned around hoping he didn't see me, grabbed a dog and went to play with them in the play area. The play area was small, white fences that you can't see through, but the thin cracks in the corner. I was playing with the dog but kept glancing through the holes to watch him walking around. It seemed like he was looking for something, or someone. I didn't dare get out of the play area until I was absolutely sure that he had left. I called my mom again, asking her to hurry up. She came and got me and took me to my school, and I was shaken for the rest of the day. I still don't know whether it could have been a coincidence that he entered the puppy shop, but I don't really believe in coincidences. He could have just been very friendly and causing no harm, but I wasn't about to give it a chance. This man was sending out red flags left and right. So yeah, let's not meet again. Story number 5. I don't tell this story often because even in 2019, when it's less and less acceptable to victim blame, I still don't like having to answer questions like what time was it and what were you wearing. I went to college in a sleepy town near the US-Mexico border. With 100,000 people, it's small enough to know many, but big enough that new faces don't stand out. I frequented this walking trail that ran alongside a main road in town. The street is well driven and the path well used by runners, walkers, bikers, and people with strollers, unless you're there near 11 at night, like I was the last time I ever walked it. I was about a half-mile away from home. I had my headphones in, and I was walking to clear my head from a particularly stubborn anxiety attack. Ironically, fear that something bad was going to happen. A car. I couldn't tell you what kind, slows as it sees me. At the time, I thought the car was a black Mustang, specifically the one a friend of mine drove. I approached the car thinking it was my friend. Smallish towns, you know. As I get closer, I see that it's not my friend. It's a man I'd never seen before. Shaved head, glasses, yellow graphic tee of sorts. I distinctly remember thinking he looked like my Uncle Dan. I stopped where I was, even took a step back. His lips were moving, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. Being the painfully polite person I am, I take a step closer to hear him better. I make out the word campus. Was he asking for directions to campus? He nodded affirmatively. Which campus? The community college or university? He stumbled, clearly not having prepared enough to know he would have been asked this question. He stammered out the name of the university in the way that made my head scream. He's not from here. Nonetheless, I told him he wasn't far. He would need to turn around and go straight 3 to 4 miles. Another quiet utterance I couldn't make out. One more cautious step forward. What? My heart is pounding. I know this guy is a creep, but I don't know what kind of creep he is. I've been staring at his face this whole time, but it wasn't until that last step forward that I noticed the way his hand was sitting and what he was holding. He flashed a handgun. As soon as he saw me see it, he said in a perfectly audible voice, "Get in the car." I completely froze. I didn't run. I didn't scream. Most assuredly, I didn't comply. I just stopped functioning for whole seconds. Again, get in the fucking car. He was getting nervous. His hand twitched on the gun. To this day, I can't explain why my brain chose to have me turn and walk away from the car. Walk. I heard the car start and somehow I knew this was the end for me. He was turning around for me. I didn't want to watch. Nobody would even come for me if I screamed. I just walked resigned. In that moment, I had given up. I can't tell you why. Instead of turning around, though, he slammed on the gas and fled, leaving me shaken, profoundly vulnerable mess. Enough wit returned after a minute or so for me to dial 911. A couple of officers showed up shortly after, and they took my statement. I remember thinking the cops didn't believe me at first. One said I was pretty calm for somebody who was almost abducted. I was even feebly making jokes. For months after that, I scoured the internet, looking for news stories about missing women or attempted abductions, hoping I would find a mugshot with his face on it. I never found one. There's a chance he's still out there, going to college towns he has no business in, asking for directions, looking like people's uncles. As for me, let's not meet again. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. Be sure to email in your true Halloween scary stories for the upcoming Halloween special. I need as many stories as you guys can send, so don't be bashful. Email me at thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I'll attach my email address in the description box below as well. And until we meet again, stay sinful.